I am here as ever with Plugged In's very own Adam. Hello, Adam.
How you doing, Andy?
I'm fine. Now, I've got a confession. I never quite know. Is it Holtz? Is it Holz?
Holtz. No,
Holtz.
it's Holtz. As if there were a T,
Right, fine.
because nobody wants holes for their last name.
Well, no, but you see, I keep trying to introduce you and thinking, do you know what? I've got to ask you how to actually say your surname because I keep forgetting.
Yeah, it's the German pronunciation, which the LZ Schultz is the same way, right?
Yep,
Well, you'll see it with a T and without a T. So same thing.
that's fine. Thank you. German pronunciation, that's fine. I'd like to get these things right because I do meet some people and think, I have no idea how to say your name. I'm just going to
Right?
ask you and go with it.
That's the right thing to do. And then
Well,
you have to remember it, though. So it's like a two-part problem.
yeah, well, that gets worse. Don't think you think I didn't know how to say this. I don't remember, but it's all fine. What's been going on in the world of Plugged In then?
We have a lot going on. I've got a couple of super fun things that I want to talk about this week that are a little tiny bit off the beaten path. But we'll start with something that's smack dab in the middle of the path, and that is Disney's latest remake of an animated classic, that being Snow White. Have you been keeping up with the controversy about Snow White, which has been going on literally for years now?
No, but I do get annoyed that they keep on making stuff again. It's like, can you not? Have you run out of creativity? Seriously, you got no
Yes.
brain power to make new things. That's my, as you can tell, my big bugbear.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And I love that you said bugbear. So, I'm not even sure everybody knows what a bugbear is, but I only know because I played Dungeons and Dragons as a child, and it was a monster we had to kill every now and then.
Okay.
Anyway, I digress really quite a lot. Yeah, I think that Hollywood, it's funny, we accuse Hollywood and the entertainment industry of being progressive and pushing the boundaries. They are in some ways, but mostly at the fringes because right at the center of it, the bean counters, the people who are responsible for greenlighting things, are pretty risk averse. And
Hmm.
so that's why we have so many franchises, because if it worked before, maybe it'll work again. And they just drive things right into the ground eventually. And that's when they quit doing it or overhaul it. But with Snow White, we have an interesting story. It stars a young actress named Rachel Zegler, and she got in trouble all the way back in 2022. She was doing sort of an off the cuff interview, and she said, yeah, this time around, Snow White is stronger, and the original was just kind of weird, and it had this creepy stalker guy. And I mean, she just sort of put it on blast and admitted she didn't really like the original. Well, Snow White is considered by many as Walt Disney's sort of magnum opus, right? And so it begged the obvious question, why do you want to star in a movie that you don't even like? And every time she opened her mouth, she dug the hole deeper, right? You've heard that phrase, you're digging a hole.
Yeah.
Rachel Zegler dug a hole so big that they canceled the British premiere of the movie because they were afraid to have her in public for what dumb things she might say or do next.
Okay.
I mean, I'm offering an interpretation of the event, but
Yeah.
this is a huge movie, and even the Hollywood premiere. Usually, you do a red carpet where the stars walk out on the carpet, and you're surrounded by people, reporters asking questions. They didn't do that at all. Well, they did a tiny one that was very, very limited, um, because she's become a liability. And all of that before the thing even got to theaters. There was a controversy about, are we going to have real dwarfs or little people? Yes, no, and both ways. Like when they were going to do that, there were people who got mad, and then they replaced them with CGI dwarfs, and people got mad. I'm like, well, I guess that's a lose-lose, right?
Yeah.
And after all of that, it's a pretty standard issue remake. I would say that the Snow White we meet here would have, in modern parlance, more agency. She's fiercer, she's feistier, but in the service of a good cause. Her parents teach her you need to be brave, you need to be fearless, you need to be fair if you're going to be the queen someday. And of course, her mom dies because that's what happens in Disney movies. And her dad marries a wicked witch, which is what happens in Disney movies. And, then he's soon disappeared shortly after that. And then Snow White has to deal with the evil queen, played by Gal Gadot, which was the other side of the controversy. You had Rachel Zegler on one side advocating for Palestinians, and Gal Gadot, who of course is Israeli, on the other side. And the rumor has it that they don't really care for each other too much, which is no big surprise.
Yeah.
But after all that, we get a movie that is okay. They didn't mess with it too much. And actually, some of the messing with it, I kind of liked it. I felt like, you know what? This has got nice messages for families. And if it weren't for the fact that they were redoing a classic, we would have all been clapping and saying, bravo, great job. So 3 years of controversy amounted to almost nothing by the time this thing actually got to theaters. And it's funny, I spent more time on the preamble of the controversy than the movie itself, which I think Disney at this point might be questioning the old saying, all publicity is good publicity, because nobody's buying tickets for this thing.
There is a limit to how good bad publicity can be, because eventually people will start believing what they hear, for good or for bad. And I think it's interesting how we get this stuff that comes up, and are they really going to be against each other? Do they really like each other secretly? It's all, but not. But then you've got the stuff that's gone on in Palestine and Gaza and Israel, and you're thinking, no, I don't think this is actually for bravado or for racing. I think this is actually two people who are quite opposed.
Yeah, well, and Gal Gadot's been borderline canceled in Hollywood. I mean, she is not a popular person in mainstream Hollywood. So it's complicated, right? And we get all of these different things that come to play in a movie like this one. And the movie actually gets here. It's like, oh, that's a pretty normal movie. It's fine. It's not great. It's not awful. It's a very serviceable live action remake, which is probably what Disney hoped for in the first place, but they got derailed pretty badly for 3 years.
I guess if you're not careful, you're trying to please so many people, you please nobody. We've seen car manufacturers have this brand new car. It's going to be revolutionary, and 3 people in a gerbil bought it because they made it with a focus group, and everyone's thinking, we don't care. The focus group loved it, but who cares? They're like 15 people, and you need more than 15 people to sell a car.
Well, that's right. And in a total tangent, we'll file this under Old Man Yells at Sky. I'm ready to go buy an old car that doesn't have any of the safety features, because I'm tired of beeps and whistles and you're out of your lane, and it nudges my steering back. I'm just let me drive the car. I'm old. I'm cranky. I don't need you telling me I screwed up. So I'm going to go get a car from 20 years ago.
This is, we're tangenting, complete tangent. We rented a car one time, and it's one of those, and it was banging me back into the lane.
Yeah.
In the UK, you indicate when you pull to the right, and when you pull back to the left, you don't indicate, because in the UK, you always drive on the left-hand side.
But it's trying to keep you in the lane because you didn't use your blinker.
Exactly.
Right?
I'm thinking, seriously, have I got to put my qualifications to the car to be able to drive it? This is a complete tangent.
So,
yes,
further on the tangent, and then we'll come back to entertainment. But I hope that our conversation is entertaining. So I took my California driver's test, because I moved to California, and before they'll give you a driver's license here, even if you, like me, have been driving for 45 years without ever having a problem, you got to take a written test again.
Of course you do.
So I had to study for my test. And they said, you're supposed to use your blinker, your turn signal, for 5 seconds before you change lanes. And I'm like, in what universe does anybody give you 5 seconds warning before changing lanes? Certainly not in California, they don't. And nowhere else I've ever lived either. I'm like, oh, that's a good one, but I'll remember it for the test.
I can go one further. In the UK, with HGV and all the driving licenses stuff, all the big trucks, they brought in this new thing, theory test with a computer. It's going to revolutionize it. And when I did my motorbike test, the actual computerized bit was going to be standard, whether it's cars, coaches, buses, it doesn't matter. Same thing. Could you just go through it as a test for us? We're trying to see if it works. Fine. I was at this point about 10 years driving professionally, big trucks, abnormal loads. I took the test and they said, you've completely failed. They said, I know, your test is wrong. The test is perfect, they said. I said, well, tell me where I went wrong. You clicked the mouse too early. I said, there's the risk down the road. Oh, but that's too early. You can't see the risk that early. Well, I'm a professional driver. If I'm driving at 40, 50 tons, I'm looking way down the road. Oh, but that's right. You're looking in the wrong place. We have become angry men shouting at the sky, don't we?
Oh, man.
It drove me mad.
What a crazy world we live in. And nothing seems to get less Nothing gets, simpler. It all gets
No,
more complex.
no.
Anyway,
Let's get back to entertainment. What else have we
yes.
got outside the movies then?
Well, Lady Gaga has a new album out. It came out 2 weeks ago. It is called Mayhem. And I suppose it's mayhemish, if I can turn that into an adjective. I've been at Plugged In for almost 22 years, and I remember when her first album came out in 2008. And it was, a kind of a club banger, as the kids would say. In 2008, I could say banger unironically, but now I have to say, look, I'm old. I'm just trying to speak the language, right? Um, so a club banger, really dancey, synth oriented. And since then, she's done almost everything. She's done country, she's done Americana, she's done folk, she's done rock. She's done a duet album with Tony Bennett of jazz standards, that sort of thing. This is almost like 14 songs that didn't make her 2008 album, her debut. It's just back to, what put her on the map, which some people have said, oh, she's run out of ideas. Other people have said, actually, this is the best thing she's done in a long time because she's really good at that. She has some reflections on life that are occasionally positive, but more often it's just sort of a mix up of life, death, sex, and some spiritual things all sort of put in a blender. And what you get feels vaguely transgressive in a old school Madonna-ish kind of way.
Okay.
And it also sort of feels like, I guess you haven't grown up much since 2008 either. Like, I actually would love to see a slightly more mature reflection on the meaning of life than the meaning of life is going out and, having a really hot experience at the club. But that seems to be sort of her center, and she has returned to it. And I'll tell you, I mean, she's got a couple songs on here that if you like her style, they're really well created songs. And I will say at Plugged In, we try to give aesthetic credit where it is due. But it's all in service of, it's largely in service of a worldview that I think has some problems. And we unpack that in our full review.
I found this with a few singers. Lady Gaga will be one. She's got an amazing voice, I think. But I feel like sometimes, can you just not use your voice in a really good way? And I don't think this is an old man talking. I think this is, you've got this amazing gift, and it feels like sometimes you're burying this thing that you have that got you famous behind stuff that people won't remember you for in a positive way in 5-10 years. Can you not go back to the music? Not because I don't care about the other stuff quite so much as I just want you to sing because you've got a really cracking voice.
She's got a really great voice. And she does do a duet with Bruno Mars that is kind of in that neck of the woods. And it's been #1 here in the States for, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. And it's called Die With a Smile. And it's just kind of romantic. And there's a kind of sweetness to it. It's about the only thing on the album that I would probably describe as sweet. There's a lot of sensuality and smoldering things, but she and Bruno do kind of an old-fashioned-y thing there that might scratch the itch that you're talking about.
Cool. Well, that's 2 Angry Men for you for Plugged In Review for this week. Next week, we'll have a nice bit of happiness before we come on and not rant and rave about driving.
We can go to therapy first and get it all out of our system.
Anyway, do you want to let us know, how do we get hold of Plugged In if we want some reviews that aren't to do with cars and driving tests?
You bet. You can come to pluggedin.com, and we also have a podcast called The Plugged In Show. It's at thepluggedinshow.com, where we have conversations, actually a lot like this one, each week. And we are a ministry of Focus on the Family in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Thank you. We'll leave the cars and stuff to one side. Thank you, Adam from Plugged In. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Andy.
Pure Media, the magazine, is hand perfected with some of the finest writers from around the world that we could find. And yes, Andy B too. New editions are released just for you on the first Friday of every month, from our family to your family. Pure Media, the magazine, is available now. Sign up for free at puremediafamily.com/magazine.